We've all heard the term let go as a method to create what we want in manifesting. And if you've ever tried to let go, but still ended up back in the same painful pattern, I know I have many times, this video is going to show you exactly why. And it's going to show you 3 ways that you can change that forever. Now, most people are told to let go of feelings when we think about it. Fear, annoyance, upset, attachment, disappointment, frustration. But those aren't the real problem. You're trying to let go of symptoms, of feelings, while the actual mechanism underneath stays exactly the same. And there are things you need to let go of, so we need to understand what they are. And until you make those changes, then life will keep repeating the same pattern in different forms. Sometimes it's not obvious, but suffering comes around again and again. You might create relationships and lose them, make more money, end up back where you started, finally feel as though you're moving forward, and somehow something comes to pull you backwards again, back into the old life. So we need to understand what that mechanism is. And of course the mechanism is you created it. We all have to face that. But you couldn't hold it. You couldn't hold the new identity, the new reality. And I've done this, as I say, many times. So in the video I'm going to show you why that happens, what you can do to resolve it, and what you actually need to let go of, and why most manifestation advice doesn't fix real issues. Now, I learnt this a hard way, manifesting what I genuinely thought 30 years ago was my dream life. And then I watched it all fall apart. And I'll tell you that story in a few minutes. But first, I need to show you the mechanism, because that's where the understanding comes from. I need to help you understand that letting go can make sense, but often it doesn't. And if you do want deeper videos on consciousness, identity, the mechanics behind manifestation, I'd invite you to subscribe to help the channel and share these ideas out. Because this is the stuff that actually helps people change, the mechanics of consciousness. So let's get back into it. So most people think that the problems they face, an event comes up in their life, is the start of when something goes wrong. But it's not the start, that's the end result. The event that you don't like starts long before any physical problem arrived in your life. You've created these issues internally, likely for many, many years usually, and created a certain amount of identity around them over that time. Those beliefs, those wants, those fears, they create an identity that has a range, if you like, a range and an internal scope of what feels normal to you, what feels safe to you. And it's that sense, or the beliefs around that, usually around safety, that hold us back or release us to new adventures. It's a range also of what you think you can hold, what you can believe in about yourself, about how much money is safe for you, how much and the type of love is safe for you, how much success is safe for you and in what way, how much personal freedom is safe for you to have, how much visibility in the world is safe for you to experience. And when your life starts moving beyond that range by pushing in and changing your beliefs and doing these affirmations and all that kind of stuff, these beliefs and then the identity react, they contract. Usually it's not consciously at first. It's kind of structural, it's internal. But then you start making decisions that pull you backward toward what feels familiar. I have done this so many times. You start to procrastinate in smaller than bigger ways. When you were taking action towards your goals, you begin to overthink instead of just moving forward. You stop showing up consistently and start making excuses for things that you're not going to do. You sabotage relationships in weird ways. You create new dramas and you stress. And this is all caused by your own limiting beliefs and the range that you can't hold, if you like. It creates an internal pressure of the new reality that you're not willing to accept. And soon things begin to fall apart again. And people repeat this pattern again and again and again. I know that I have. So here's the important part. Most people think the problem is the thing that they lost. It isn't. The problem is that part of the identity still believed they couldn't hold it, that they weren't safe. That's the mechanism. It's around safety and an acceptance of a new reality, what you're willing to experience. And once you understand that, a huge amount of spiritual advice stops making sense, because most advice tells you to let go of the emotional pain. Let go. But emotional pain is essential. It's a feedback. It's an effect that we need to pay attention to. It's not a cause. And this is essential to understand, because most of the time what people call letting go is actually some kind of resignation. It's kind of like a final acceptance that they don't really understand what's happening. They're confused, they're upset, they're annoyed, and they don't believe that they have the ability to change it, so they just let go. So instead of turning toward the problem with awareness, they turn away from it and accept it. They detach when they should be exploring. Then they resign themselves, begin to suppress and ignore what they really want from their life. They kind of might internally try to rise above it and think, well, I didn't really want that anyway. But you see, transformation never happens by moving away from something that's unresolved, ever. It happens by becoming conscious of the mechanism creating it. You need to turn toward it. You don't heal patterns by escaping them. You heal them by understanding them and then changing them. There are 3 things that you need to let go of, that I want to encourage you to let go of. And until you do, my experience is the same pattern just keeps repeating. The first is the belief setting the range itself. I've talked about this so many times. These limiting beliefs that are defining in concrete terms what feels possible for you, what feels safe, or what you think is deserved for you in this life. They are beliefs, very, very common, like money never lasts, or if I become too successful, people will judge me, and so you pull back. Relationships always end, so you sabotage, or success creates pressure, so you don't bother. Life eventually takes good things away is a very common. We don't expect the best, we expect the worst. And all of these beliefs were formed years before you consciously started to change your life, but they're still running. That's the operating system. The second thing you need to let go of is the story that somehow the universe out there is capable and wants to take things away from you. It's one of the most damaging spiritual stories that people carry. They say the universe gave me and then it took it away for its own reasons. Now, I understand why people say it, because psychologically it protects them. And of course, we all want to feel safe. This story allows them to feel powerful when things go well. Look, the universe gave this to me. I'm part of the universe. But unfortunately, powerless when things go badly. And if consciousness creates reality, which it does, you can't split the two apart. You created the success, and you also created and participated in what you couldn't hold, i.e. the failure, the lessons. And that, of course, is uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable for me. It's uncomfortable for everybody until you change your thinking, because that's where the power is. That's where the third thing spiritual people especially need to let go of comes in, the idea that suffering itself is spiritually valuable, and it's not. When you understand that, you can keep moving towards pleasure and abundance. This belief runs incredibly deep. We all grew up hearing stories about suffering saints, if you like. So Jesus suffering on the cross, or gurus renouncing everything, money's not spiritual, monks living in poverty to gain enlightenment. And the idea that struggle somehow makes you purer or wiser or more evolved. And after a while, many spiritual people unconsciously begin to associate suffering with depth. The more they suffer, the more depth they have spiritually, as though pain improves spiritual value. But think about what that does psychologically. If part of you believes that suffering makes you more spiritual and you want to be spiritual, you value it, what kind of realities will that identity keep recreating? You can consciously want peace, abundance, and love, while unconsciously believing that struggle is the higher path and never achieving or experiencing any of those. That one conflict, i.e. limiting belief alone, can create a lifetime of repeating patterns. I've seen it time and again. Now, suffering can absolutely wake people up, of course. It can teach you something important. But I would suggest that suffering teaches you one main lesson, that suffering is not good for the soul. Awareness is good for the soul. Freedom is good for the soul. Expansion is good for the soul. All these things feel good to us because we are the soul. Suffering is only useful if it eventually helps you wake up and helps you realize that living in suffering is not spiritually superior in any way, shape or form. And of course, I used to believe some of those, and that played out dramatically in my life 30 years ago. But when I finally understood that suffering is not good for the soul and that I was the soul, I completely changed the way I saw these failures. But first, I want you to notice something. How many times in your life have you got close to the thing that you wanted and then somehow, emotionally or in some way, shape or form, get back where you started? As if you just can't quite get there. There might be different circumstances, different areas of your life, or the same emotional pattern. That is where your identity is pulling you back. And until you understand that, the pattern just changes form. It morphs into different areas of your life. Now, back in 1997, I was managing around 2,500 people in restaurants all around Hertfordshire in the UK. What I really wanted to do was healing full time. I was doing it part time But the pull was, I want to go full time. And one day I walked into a very small new age stop in the town where I now live. The shop's about a mile that way. And during the conversation, they casually mentioned the person running the local healing centre was leaving and they didn't know what they were going to do. Now, for me, this was a light went on. And that one conversation obviously changed my life. Within a very short time, I'd taken over the centre. I resigned, a very well-paid job. Me and my wife and my 1-year-old moved into the attic above it. Bit crazy. And honestly, it was great. I thought I'd manifested my dream life. I was healing all day, exploring all day. Everything seemed to line up perfectly. I genuinely thought I'd escaped my old life because I had financial challenges before that. But then 9 years later, after lots of different difficulties, I went bankrupt. And when something falls apart, when you finally thought that you'd made it, and I really did, it really hits hard. I understand that. Manifesting in this life is a challenging lifestyle because it doesn't just affect your finances doing this kind of work, it attacks our identities. Now, at that point, I could have told myself the standard spiritual story, the universe gave me this, but then it decided to take it away as a lesson in some way, shape or form. And a lot of people would stop there and reevaluate their life. But deep down, I was aware that that wasn't true. I knew from a very young age that I created my own experience. Because if I created the successes, I had to be involved in what I couldn't hold on to, i.e. the failures, the struggles. It's exactly the same mechanism, just a different expression. And that changed everything. It gave me a lifeline, if you like, a way that I use today just to keep moving forward. I stopped focusing only on the emotional pain and the struggles, and I started looking at the structure and the mechanisms beneath my belief systems and how it interacted with reality. How my fears, my beliefs, the invisible range that I'd created from my childhood, how that was operating inside my life. And once I understood that I created the boundaries, I realised, and I'd heard the phrase letting go, I realised that that was very superficial. It teaches people how to emotionally recover, so let go, they take a break, okay? But it never changes the mechanism that's created the problems in the first place, and that's what I'm interested in. And that's what I think you should be interested in. Because this is where people stay trapped for many, many years. I see it all over the channel and on other channels and emails. Emotional relief feels like transformation, feels, okay, I've changed something. So you start to meditate or you calm down, you detach, you stop focusing. And you do feel better, for sure, you give yourself a break. But then 6 months later, the same kind of situation appears again, either in the same area of your life or a different area of your life. And I sabotaged all the areas of my life throughout my journey because the identity underneath stayed the same. The identity dominates, not affirmations, and certainly not techniques, but identity, who we believe we are, what's safe for us. And you're always going to struggle to hold that new reality you want if it fundamentally conflicts with who you believe that you are. That's why people get a temporary blip. They create things, they can't hold it, so they come back. And the moment that you understand that's the mechanism, that's the only mechanism, your focus and your choices can change. You can stop trying to force outcomes. You can start detaching slightly. You can begin extending the range that your identity can hold by coming off it and looking at your beliefs. And that's the real work of transformation. And it works. You can transform your life doing that. So in terms of practicality, what do? First thing, of course, you find the beliefs, setting this range, this scope that you've placed yourself in, not by suppressing or ignoring, not by pretending that they aren't there or somehow validating them by some spiritual idea. You must become aware of them because beliefs hidden in the unconscious continue running your life 24/7. The second thing is stop telling yourself the story that life is happening to you. You need to own your manifesting powers. You are not being punished by a universe taking anything away from you. Reality itself is not randomly removing things from your experience. It's something much more understandable than that. It's a structural mechanism. Your identity creates reality and it's revealing its limits. Once you clearly see those limits, you can finally begin to change them quite consciously. That's the mechanism. The third thing is stop romanticizing suffering. Stop treating struggle as evidence of spiritual depth. I knew somebody suffered for a very long time doing this. They just thought that spirituality meant they needed to suffer. But you don't need to suffer endlessly to grow. Quite the opposite. You do not need to lose everything to become worthy. You do not need to stay trapped in painful cycles to prove anything to anybody that you're spiritual. Real growth is not about becoming better at suffering. It's about becoming more conscious and more self-aware. And at that point, you realize that you don't have to suffer. That's the real letting go. But it's not giving up. It's not pretending not to care. It's not stepping away. Letting go of the beliefs and the stories that keep recreating the same life is an active choice. And that's what I would encourage you to do. And if you want help identifying those beliefs, I've got 2 things to help you. Let me know what you think of the video. I've got the belief blueprint and an inner journey trance meditation as well. But what do you think? Have you tried to let things go and they just come back? Or has it worked for you? Other than just giving you a small bit of a respite on your journey. Do let me know in the comments what you think. I read all of them. I try and reply to as many as I possibly can. Do subscribe, go through, download those tools and begin to use them. And I'll see you in the next video. That's it. Take care.